Welcome to another episode of Lucas Live. Excited about another episode today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about a really great topic. I think it's something that's very important. I think it's very timely. Today we're going to be talking about abortion. We're going to be talking about pregnancy, sudden pregnancy. What happens if you suddenly find yourself pregnant, right? You didn't plan it. You didn't, you weren't married and trying for the last several months. And, we got a little bun in the oven. You're like, something's baking and I wasn't ready. What do you do about it? What have you done about it? We're going to talk about it. Somebody today. That's a very sensitive topic, and we will show respect to that today. There's somebody who may be joining us today who normally would comment and be in the comments and wanting to talk. And today this is heavy and personal, and you'd rather just sit back and listen. Please feel comfortable, feel free. We want to respect you and your feelings and what this topic may bring up for you. So we are excited about that. So thank you guys so much for being here. I see some people coming into the comments. We have the same. I apologize for you guys who are coming into the Restream, and the top title is still the same on Restream. Sorry, we were having some technical difficulties, and so that stayed the same. So let's see. We'll see if we can jump in and fix that real quick. It may not work, but that's okay. We will work it out. Thank you guys who are jumping in. Mr. Antonio Hall, thank you so much for being here, my man. Glad to have you kicked off our first morning show with a bang. So I'm excited to see you here again today. I'm going to try to update this topic today. We'll see what happens. Good morning, Amanda. Good morning, Cherise. We're going to talk about something different today. So I'm over here fixing this live. See, what you guys get to do is watch a live podcast recording. You usually listen to your podcast and you just listen to them. You don't know what goes on. They master them. They fix them. They edit stuff out. They edit stuff in. What you guys get to do is watch the recording live. That's what you're watching, a live video podcast. So while I'm over here fixing stuff, we're just, let's ride together. What's up, my man? Mr. Ric Flair, Mr. Mikey Benison, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here, my man. I appreciate y'all being up and at 'em this morning, always. Let's talk pregnancy and abortions. Y'all gonna have to let me know if this updates the title. We'll see what happens here. If it doesn't, we'll update it after the fact. We're gonna go ahead. It says I can update them. We'll see. Boom. Let's see what happens. You guys let me know if those titles updated. We'll see. If not, it's all good. Thank you guys so much. Good morning, Miss Latasha Ellis, my good friend. Glad to have you here. Miss Ebony Acker, so glad to have you guys share this broadcast so other people can see it. This is going to be, this is important. This show, we laugh. We have a good time. We celebrated my birthday. Shout out to everybody who donated for the birthday, put a little money on my shirt. On my birthday. Where is that at? Let me see. I was going to throw that back up there. Boom. If you want to still donate to the Cash App for the birthday, it's there. My birthday was last week. Thank you guys. And the donations. I donated half of all the proceeds to the Be a Better Me Foundation. And I will do that again today. If anybody makes a donation today, I will donate half the proceeds to the Be a Better Me Foundation with Officer Lamar Sharp. So that was super cool to be able to do that for him. And I was honored to be able to give to his foundation. And he was so excited that I had done it and, showed me so much love. And we text back and forth. And it's just a blessing. That's what I'm all about. I want to give. I want to help people. I want to educate, motivate, liberate. And sometimes liberation comes through financial means. You have to help people be free to do their mission and their calling because you help them have the resources they need. You guys let me know if that updated the title. If you go back out and come back in, I appreciate it. I had it on as Officer Lamar Sharp was back on, and that was the wrong title. I hadn't updated it. It's a lot of different applications on this Wednesday. We're going to go behind the scenes of Lucas Live. I hope to be able to share my whole screen and show you guys what's happening on my end. You guys are going to meet my wonderful team, which I got maybe a month and a half ago. A few wonderful ladies joined me and have been so helpful. Miss Lynette Beatty and Miss Amanda Jean Dukes, the producer. So I'm excited. All right. So thank you guys so much. All right. I see it didn't necessarily update that on Periscope. That's okay. We'll work it out. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get that straight. No, not updated. All right. Well, that's okay. We're going to keep it moving and keep rolling. All good. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys so much. So the title, okay, I see you guys. So what we're talking about today, maybe I'll get some people in for different reasons. They're going to come in and be like, I thought Officer Sharp was going to be on here. It's like, sorry, didn't update the title. Good morning. What's up, Hugh? Glad to have you here. Sorry, everybody, about that title issue. But we're going to talk about today are abortions, pregnancy, sudden pregnancy. We're going to be talking to Miss Deborah Martin from her wonderful organization. We're going to learn more about it. Thank you so much. All right, Mike, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate the love and support. I appreciate you taking your break to join us. Miss Gloria Sanders, Angela Drake, my two aunts. Thank you guys for being here. So we're going to get started here today. This is an important topic. Again, if you know somebody who has had an abortion, considering an abortion, has had a sudden pregnancy, kept a child, has or maybe dealing with some mental health issues as a result of that. You have young people, you're a parent of a teenager or young people, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what to tell my kids, my teenagers. I know what I did. I know what I went through. I know some of the mistakes I made. Again, somebody out there watching, this is a very sensitive subject, and we want to we want to be sensitive to that today. We're going to talk about it, but we want to be sensitive. If you have some hurt, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what do you do if you've had an abortion in the past. Ms. Deborah Martin, we were talking this morning, and she was telling me, sometimes people don't know why they're dealing with some of the things they're dealing with. They don't tie it to the abortion. They think they're just sad. They think they're just angry. They think they're just frustrated in life and mad at their career. I don't know. It may be any number of things. And the abortion may have happened some time ago, but they're still dealing with some grief or some issues tied to that. So we're going to talk about that today. So you guys, thank you guys for being here. We're going to get into it. And I want to welcome to the show, Miss Deborah Martin. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So glad to have you. And thank you for things you've already taught me in the short time that we've known each other. I appreciate it. So can you tell everybody here today a little bit about yourself and your organization?
A little bit about me. My name is Deborah, and I'm the CEO of Pregnancy Choices. I've been in Canton, Ohio, about 20 years, originally from Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Okay. Grew up during the civil rights movement, was one of the first to go to basically an all Caucasian school. Mm. So I had that experience growing up in Mississippi. Okay. So as we look at what's happening now with racism, I've dealt with it years and years. I've seen it, and so got that whole history going on. But the lessons I learned were phenomenal going through all of that. I am married to a local pastor here in Canton, Ohio.
He's here in the audience right now. Pastor Gary Martin. He said Pregnancy Choices and Eva are great ministries under Deborah Martin's direction. He's here showing love and support. Shout out to Pastor Gary Martin. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to shout him out. Glad he's here.
I love that support. Love you, baby.
He's on.
Anyway, so with that, and then end up going to University of Michigan. My husband and I both graduated from there, and I always say God has a sense of humor because then he moved us to Buckeye Country.
Moved you to Ohio. Welcome. Yes, we welcome you.
I have 4 grown children and 6 grandbabies, and I always tell everybody if I could have had grandbabies first, I think that's the way to do it. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. So much easier, sweeter, just,
Yes.
It's an easier road. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And tell us a little bit your organizations that you had.
So Pregnancy Choices was formerly known as Pregnancy Support Center. And we've been around for almost 40 years now. And we've been here as support to anybody basically who finds themselves in a situation where they may think they may be pregnant. So we provide all sorts of things. And I'm going to divide this into 2 separate components because we used to be one organization under Pregnancy Support Center. Okay. But then back in January, we actually kind of split off. And now Pregnancy Choices is what we're called. And we provide anything that deals with people who are pregnant, they are keeping the baby, they are going to be a parent, they already have the baby. So we provide parenting classes, we provide material support, childbirth classes. When I say material support, I mean things like formula, diapers, wipes, cribs, everything basically you would need for that child
Awesome.
up until about 2 years old,
Wow.
2 years of age. So clothes, everything like that. So we don't just give them away free.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they basically come in, they can take parenting classes, and we do some of those things online, especially now with COVID-19.
Right.
We Now we're beginning to have classes back in the building, but they come in and they earn baby fake baby, but the baby bucks, and they
Okay.
can use those things to purchase those items in our boutique that we have here. So basically, everything you might need, car seats, everything. We have programs that will walk somebody through the first 9 months of their pregnancy, all the way through to the child is two. We have a phenomenal program called the Vital Program where we meet twice a month basically, and we're just there to support them and the whole family.
That's awesome. 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 So right now we're obviously dealing with a lot of civil unrest and the pandemic and everything going on. How has what's happened right now affected this organization and you guys' work? How have you guys adjusted?
Well, we actually never shut down. That was a great thing. We changed how we did things for at Pregnancy Choices because what we did was we did drive up. So basically, people were still able to get all the items they needed. They would call in, they would tell us what they needed. We would put it in a bag. They would drive up. We would walk outside with our mask on. Would be able to give them what they need so that they could keep going and provide those things like the formula and diapers and those kinds of items. So we kept going, and then we also kind of reverted over to doing all of our classes online. So we would send them a parenting class or something related to taking care of their baby, and they could do it on their phone if they had a smartphone, do it on their computer, and they would call in and let us know what they learned. And then we would they could still earn their vouchers that way. So we were still able to adapt and do it safely for everybody is what we called it, because
Uh-huh.
we knew the need was still out there and we did not want to close down. So people who said they got a chance to go home and clean their houses because they were uh
Right. On
you know
quarantine and
COVID-19,
furloughed.
I was working every day, so I never got a
Wow.
chance to do all of that, but it's all good. And then the part I forgot to mention earlier when I said we split, so we split into what we call Eva Women's Clinic. So anybody who think they may be pregnant, they can come in and get a pregnancy test. They can get an ultrasound. They can even get STD testing and treatment. Um, so we have medical professionals there. It's not just anybody fly by night. They actually have medical people on staff. We have a nurse practitioner. We have the ultrasound tech. We have everybody who provides those services, and they are all free. So that Eva Women's Clinic never closed down either during the whole COVID-19.
That is awesome. That is amazing. That is important. Those are frontline workers that I think sometimes we're not thinking about, especially with an organization that is not the hospital, right? It's a support for the community. So, Lynette, we have Lynette Beatty here in the comments. She asked a great question. She said, "Tell us a bit about pregnancy counsel. What happens when someone is on the fence?" Now, she's familiar with this organization, but that is a great question. What do you guys do when someone's on the fence about their pregnancy? Should I keep the baby? What should I do? How do you guys help them?
We actually educate them on all of their options. But we also help them to understand what life affirming looks like, that there are some options. If they are kind of on that fence of having an abortion or not having an abortion, we help them to hopefully get past that crisis mode of like, okay, I've got to do this. But we love on them. One of the
Yeah,
things that we hear over and over is that when people walk into Eva Women's Clinic is, I felt loved.
that's
Nobody's going
awesome.
to judge them for any decisions that they're made. They sit down one on one with them and they go through this whole process of helping them understand and, looking past right now to looking into the future,
Mm,
with that goal of helping them to really understand that I can make it. I can do this. There's support out there
yeah.
and we can do this. I love, we don't call them counselors because they're not really counselors,
Hmm.
but we call them
I
advocates.
love it.
So they help walk them through that and love on them and just help them to make those choices.
That's different and amazing because this is a tough conversation. This is tough. When we're talking about someone is pregnant and we're talking about whether they're going to keep the baby or not, so often people feel judged. People
Hmm.
feel shame. People feel guilt. People feel so many things. Why is it so important that you guys love on them? And how do you make that a part of the fabric of the organization?
I think because we all love each other and we know, and here's the strange thing: many of our staff, as I look back, and even my history, tell you, look, I didn't tell you, I told you who I am now. I didn't tell you who I was as a teenager. So, and Lucas, we didn't even talk about this up front, but I was a teenage parent.
Wow.
At the age of 16, I
Mm.
got pregnant. Actually, at the age of 17, I got pregnant. Um, had my first baby before I turned 18, was still a senior in high school. And keep in mind, I told you I grew up in Mississippi. In Mississippi during that time, and I don't want to tell my age at the moment. I don't care about telling my age, but at that time, if you got pregnant in school, they kicked you out. Right. So when I found out I was pregnant in March of my senior year, I said, I am not telling anybody because I am going to walk down that aisle. I am going to graduate. So I kept it a secret until I actually graduated so I could walk down the aisle and get my diploma and do all of that because I knew I would get kicked out. Who wants to get kicked out in their last couple of months
Right.
of school?
Wow.
So I've been there, done that. So as I look at the history of some of my workers who are here, I have a couple of them who work at Eva Women's Clinic who did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were single parents, so they understand. They understand that dilemma.
Yeah.
Um, back when I was, you got basically kind of kicked out of church for doing the same. You couldn't do anything in church
Mm.
of being pregnant.
Yeah.
Um, but we basically bring them in, we talk to them, we find out where they are, what they're going through, and just help them and even basically connect them to other organizations if we need to in order to help them deal with whatever situation they're in at that point.
That is, I mean, that is incredible, and I love that. It because sometimes you go into places where the people have the book knowledge of the situation, but they don't have that heart knowledge. They don't have that true experience that I've been where you are. I'm not just empathizing because I studied empathy and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, but a part of me is like, how did you get here? Or this is not our first time, right? I'm guessing there's times where you're seeing these ladies and you're thinking, we know each other, don't we, right?
Right.
And showing them love still. So I love that. I love that. I love that. So this topic right now of Black Lives Matter has been one of the things that has been said by so many people in the news is, well, if Black Lives Matter, why are there so many abortions in the black community? Black lives don't matter to black people. And they use that with the black on black crime, which we know is a proximity issue. Geographically, people who live near each other have crimes against the people they live near. That's just what it is. It's not that it's worse than somebody else. The abortions, though, is something that a lot of us don't know how to deal with that argument. One, is it true statistically that black people abort at a higher rate? And if so, what do you think are some of the factors that are involved in that?
I think in general, abortions many times happens out of convenience. Sometimes it's because of other things that go on economically. We are dealing with, as an African American, a lower economic standard for the most part.
Right.
So a lot of times that comes into play when we are looking at, can I afford to have this child?
Mm.
I'm not working. My relationship is not the best. Those
Yeah.
kind of things. So it does happen. To answer your question about the abortions in the Black community, yes. As we look at society as a whole, we are a very small percentage of the population in the United States. We are, about I'm thinking about 12% of the population overall. But when we look at abortions, they kind of rate them in a percentage per thousand people. So we look at ours as African Americans, we normally range about 30% out of 30 out of every thousand people have an abortion. When we look at the Caucasians, it's about 10 per 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, that's a huge difference.
Yes.
You look at, especially with the African American overall population, then it becomes even worse.
Wow.
Because, if you really think about it, and some of the stats have shown, there are more African American babies aborted um, basically than how many lives were lost in the Vietnam War.
Wow. Each year?
Yes.
Wow. That's significant. So as we look at that, help us understand this is not things can't be looked at in a vacuum, right? So the system of racism in our country that has put African Americans, black people behind, has put us behind economically. It's put us behind from a healthcare perspective. It's put us behind. Then we go into mass incarceration, and fathers are gone from the homes. And I mean, I would think that these systems and these structures have had an impact. Can you give us some idea of some of the factors that you think have played a role in how did we get here as a group of people?
I would say if people would really go back and look at the history of how abortion started, um, even illegally, even legal, either way. If you go back and look at the history, especially of legal abortion, there was a time period when there was a lady named Margaret Sanger, who was actually the founder of Planned Parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
um, where her goal before even being the founder of Planned Parenthood was based on we need to decrease the population of African Americans.
Right.
Because coming out of slavery, there was a lot of racism, a lot of things dealing with back there. But
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand even what happened as they tried to figure out what do we do with all of these slaves now?
Yeah.
Now that they're becoming free.
Right.
If they keep having babies, they're going to take
Take
over.
over. That's
And it was a scary process at that
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of behind the scenes things going on back then where they were saying, well, we got to deal with this. We've got to put together a plan. So, they first started out talking about population control.
Mm-hmm.
So then they decided, well, that's not quite working. We've got to be politically correct for in a sense. We've got to not
Yeah.
do it that way. But there were certain things that they called us as African Americans, like we were feeble-minded, we
Mm.
were not smart, we were poor, we were whatever. So they started using those kind of words in the documents in order to try to get that population under control. When it did not work, they started the birth control, you know, and you got to remember the sexual revolution happened back then too, during the same, they had all of that going on. Um, but the end result ended up being they started planting abortion clinics in predominantly low income areas in order to try to control that. So they say, well, if it doesn't work this way, we'll try this way.
Wow. I think that's really an important topic. And you and I talked, and a lot of people know my mom worked for Planned Parenthood as when I was a teenager growing up for many years. And she was a community outreach worker working in Canton, Ohio. And we had maybe, I believe, at one point, the highest rate of teen pregnancy in one of our high schools and in the area, or at least highest per capita. And her job was to go into the community and go, set up tables and educate, go into the schools and educate, work with her own children, educate us. But I've learned a lot recently about the history of Planned Parenthood. And her thing was never about abortion. My mom worked for Planned Parenthood, but she absolutely loved babies. And she said, I would adopt all those babies. I wish they'd just give me their babies, was what my mom would always say. And it hurt her, but her goal was to catch people further up the river. She hoped to educate people before they were pregnant, so that they wouldn't even have to make these tough choices. But there is some ugly truth to the history of Planned Parenthood that you've shared, I'm assuming you're telling us we can find this information. This is not a secret. This is not something your organization has made up to be at odds with Planned Parenthood. Can you tell us a little bit more? You started to share a little bit about that history. Can you tell us a little bit more? I mean, what was the founder of Planned Parenthood like? What was her agenda, and what was the heart of starting this? What we see as a resource. And we're not here to bash Planned Parenthood, but let's talk about the truth.
The truth is, back even before Planned Parenthood started, that before they became known as Planned Parenthood, they had, and I'm trying to remember the correct name. I can't even think of it right now, but it was named something else. And when they realized that the um, the idea of trying to get people to not have babies wasn't working, then they went into the idea, well, let's help them plan the pregnancies. That's how they changed. But one of the things I would recommend for anybody who is looking to get more information, and how that whole idea is connected to the eugenics of getting rid of the population, there is a documentary called, it looks like MAPA 21, but it's MAAFA 21. It is a documentary that really goes back and it traces Black genocide, and it connects the dots of how the history. You see the newsletters, you see the people talking, the articles, different things, how it kind of really got to the point where they were looking to basically get rid of us,
Wow.
because they knew we were going to we were having too many babies.
Mm.
It's really written in some of the articles, said there are too many, and the word they used in, there were too many Negroes being born every year. We've got to do something.
So there was a system put in place to control the population of Black people in America, which I think is fascinating now, where people then use that same argument about abortion to talk about, basically to say, almost to say they don't have to care about Black lives because apparently we don't care about Black lives. But again, the system was set up for us to have these options to plan the parenthood. Whereas I always thought of planning a parenthood as, I was like, wow, it's really about helping people. Because I always said this about most people I knew. I didn't know people who planned parenthoods. I did not know people who were like, oh, we're married and, we're looking to get a little bun in the oven. What I saw were people like, scrambling like, oh, we're taking a test and people are sweating and
Right.
somebody missed their period and everybody's running around and it was a nerve-wracking situation, right? And so I'm like,
Right.
wow, Planned Parenthood sounded like an amazing thing, but interestingly enough, the root of it was something a little different. And your husband made a great point. Pastor Gary Martin said history repeats itself. Pharaoh in
Yeah.
Egypt tried to curb the population of Jews, and they started to when they started to increase in numbers, and that spirit is still active and alive today. Very,
Yes.
very true. So as we
Yeah.
look at this, and your husband is here today, and you're here as members and leaders in the church community, help us understand. Like, this is a tricky. All of this is tough when it comes to church. My experience in church is church doesn't talk about sex, doesn't talk about sexuality. Only thing we talk about is don't do it. Don't look like you're doing it. Don't dress like you're doing it. Don't do it. And it's just like boom. And then somebody gets pregnant, and the only other discussions that I've ever seen was, if they're in leadership, is how fast can we sit them down and get them out the way, because we can't have that up here. And so there's just so much discomfort. To me, the place where we come for healing doesn't seem to have the structure to help heal, because it's so stigmatized, it's so taboo. It's like, oh no, so and so got pregnant, and we like, ooh, this is just dirty. That means they were having sex, and we don't have sex. So help us understand, as a community leader, as a church leader, and I'm not saying that some of those things aren't just. I'm not saying you should have, the person who got pregnant out of wedlock standing up there leading the church or something. But help us understand how you look at that, maybe how your church looks at these types of issues, and trying to show some comfort to people who are going through things like this.
I look at it this way, and I think my husband would agree with me. I hope he would agree with me. Um, we we love on them no matter what. Sin is sin. You call it out. You know what it is. But helping people to understand. First of all, you don't have to get to that point. Go back and start the teaching early, not just control, but really teaching them to value who they are. One of the programs that we actually have coming out of Pregnancy Choices is called Sold Out. And that program goes into almost every high school and junior high here in Stark County. And we do a 4-day presentation talking about the consequences of having sex outside of a married, committed relationship. But we also, the STDs and all those things, but it's so much more than that. We talk about self esteem, we talk about valuing who they are, because the reality is, many times because of our music, because of things that are out there, we teach our children as toddlers how to dance sexually, and then we videotape it and we put it on YouTube and we put it on, so everybody on Facebook, is seen everywhere, but
It's
we're
true.
not them to value who they are. So one of my passions is to see people walk in freedom,
Mm.
and that freedom means knowing who you are. If you are a Christian, knowing who you are in Christ.
Mm.
But to walk in that freedom. And in order to do that, you've got to let go of some of those other things. So even as a teenager, in a great church, there should be teaching about sex. There
Mm-hmm.
should be teaching about, this is
Yes.
what happened. But there also should be teaching of not just saying no, but how to say no, how
Mm.
to keep yourself out of that situation where you don't find yourself in a situation where you might get pregnant.
Yes.
I have it doesn't happen often,
Mm-hmm.
but I have one of my employees here who actually goes into the schools and teaches one of these programs. She is getting ready to get married, and I want to say she's at least 30,
Mm.
but she's has saved herself for her future husband because she values him that much and she values herself that much. And the crazy thing is, she's never even kissed her fiance.
Wow.
They're going to kiss for their first time
Wow.
on their wedding day.
Whew. Even Christians get engaged and they be like, "We gonna be married anyway," and then
Right,
stuff
right,
is happening.
right.
Right.
So so she did it the biblical way. Is what she did. Everybody's
Yes.
not going to do that,
Sure.
but there are consequences for not doing it that way. When I look at my husband and I, we will be, bless the Lord, we will be married 40
It's
years in
awesome.
August.
Awesome.
But I also know when I came into that relationship with him, I had already had a baby. So there were many things I dealt with relationship wise with him that I should have had to have dealt with,
Yeah.
but it was based on what my past was.
Yep.
And because of that, we had to work through a lot of relationship issues because of both of our backgrounds,
Mm.
basically.
Yeah.
Um, so there are so many things that we can teach our children and say, look, I've been there, done that. I don't want you to have to go through this. So let me show you a better way.
Mm. I
And I
love
don't
it.
think churches do that as well as they need to.
I absolutely agree. I think your transparency here today leads me to believe you guys have that type of transparency at your church. And I've had the pleasure of visiting your church, and I shared that with you, the love that I felt even coming to your church in the past. And it is sad to me. And I think that we often look for government, we look for healthcare systems, we look for everything but the house of God, the house of God, the house of bread, the place that we are supposed to be fed from, the greatest resource. And it lacks that because of the stigmas, because we shy away from things that it's like if we talk about it, there's going to be some difficulties. There's going to be nuance, right? The church likes to major in black and white, right? It's like this is right and this is wrong and that's it. And then the conversations that have to be had to get people from right and wrong are things that people aren't educated about. They don't want to talk about. They don't want to go there. And so we keep talking about, like, I know I've heard the story of Moses 1,000 times, but I don't know how to deal with my current problem. I don't know how to deal with the pain, the guilt, the shame. I know my church family loves me, but if I do this, then I might risk losing that love. I might risk losing that healing that I was feeling from the fact that my parents didn't have it all together and I got some issues and I came to this church. Now because of some of those issues, I've been putting myself in vulnerable situations and now this woman is pregnant and may not even know who the father is. And how do I go to my church family where we usually dress up real nice inside and out get real dignified, look real good, smile and say hello, praise the Lord. How do I go in and talk to them about that? So as a church leader, what would you say to other church leaders out there who may be watching? How can they change? How can they adjust? And is there any support that you or your organization could offer them to start having these conversations with their congregation?
We would, first of all, we would love to come in and do groups inside of your church, to
Awesome.
your youth group, to your the leaders, the workers, youth workers, whoever it
Awesome.
may be, and the adults, because it's not just youth who get pregnant. We have 30-year-olds who get pregnant and they're not married. So
Great point.
the whole goal is to love them through it. We have a God who forgives us
Yes.
of anything that we do.
Yeah.
And if we have a God who forgives us,
Mm,
why is it so hard for us to forgive other people when they mess up?
right.
Sin is sin.
Yes.
And when we mess up, God forgives us. So our goal is to go to that church and say, look, yes, I messed up. Admit it. That's the first thing. Admit it.
Mm-hmm.
I, I did it wrong. Here
Yes.
I am. Help me. Love me through this. Let's get through this together. And I think if churches did that more often, we wouldn't lose so many people, because I know people who have, would come into church, and when they got pregnant outside of wedlock, they stopped coming. That's the worst thing you can do, is to stop coming. But they didn't feel like they would belong there anymore.
Yes. Now let me.
Want to
Oh,
feel belong, just like God wants us to feel belong.
I love that, and I have to say from personal experience. Funny, I'm talking about this, and I hadn't even reflected on my own personal experience. And on my show, our goal is three things: education, motivation, liberation. We want to educate people as you're doing today. We want to motivate people to take what they've learned and make some new choices and changes. And we want to liberate them and set them free, because so many people are held down by stigmas, their own guilt, their own shame, their own problems, or society's problems that are keeping us bound, and we're not free to move forward, to be set free. And my wife and I, of 11 years now, my beautiful wife Corinne Marie, who's Tyndale, who's on here somewhere. I'm sure she's watching. She can't miss a show. I don't think so. I don't know. I know she got stuff to do, but I hope she's watching. I know she was in the comments here earlier. My wife and I was in ministry at my church. I was in ministry since I was 19 years old. I came to this church, Dayspring Family Church, Pastor Richard and Verlinda Bennett, who I love dearly. And I came to the church about 25 years old. I had gone through a divorce. I had 3 children. I was very broken and very hurt at the time coming there, and I got a lot of healing and help. And then I met this wonderful young lady, my wife, and I brought her to the church, and she got help and healing and love there at the church. Okay, she said she's here. I see you, sweetie. She got help and healing at the church. And while we were there getting love, help, and healing at the church, we were falling in love with each other. And we got pregnant. And we cried a little bit. And we looked around a little bit. And we thought, what is life? We were not married. We had hoped to get married, but we weren't married yet. And we thought, man, we got to go tell our pastor and his wife. And I'm in leadership, and I'm a pastor. I'm an associate pastor at the church. This is crazy. I was the youth pastor. I'm leading the youth ministry. Man, this is rough. How do we deal with this? How do we talk about this? I felt like I was older at that point. I mean, although I was, 25, 26 maybe, I felt like, man, I'm old enough to have known better. What are we doing? We were trying not to have sex and all that stuff. And here we are, we get pregnant. And we went to our pastor and his wife, Richard and Verlinda Bennett. And I don't know that I've ever had a more loving experience in my life. Like, to tell someone something that is bad news to them, that there's going to have to be a consequence. And there was. And there was a season of being sat down and not leading and dealing and grieving, and or not even grieving. I mean, we worked through our stuff. We got ready for marriage because we wanted to be married. They worked with us to get prepped for marriage, and not the shotgun wedding, but if you guys really want to get married, then let's do the work. Let's dig in and let's work through some of your stuff. And they worked with us, and they said, if anybody in this church says one thing about you, they're going to have to face us. They said, if one person says one bad thing, like you're worse than them because they all sin, your sin is just going to be a little more noticeable in a few months. They're going to have to deal with us. That loving experience was transformational. It mattered. It matters. And so I love that you guys want to offer support to people, because I think too often churches fall short in loving people through their mess. Right? Especially the mess that we can see, because we all got mess, but the mess that we can see. So carrying this conversation forward, people are often dealing with guilt and shame. And you and I talked about that before. How what do you guys offer to help people again dealing with the guilt and shame that they may be feeling from having abortion? It may have been 10 years ago, it may have been 10 days ago, and maybe it's creeping up in their life. And then also tell us a little bit about sometimes how that comes out. You were sharing with me that sometimes it doesn't come out as walking with their head down, guilt and shame. It may come out in other ways.
Right. There are so many ways that people who have past abortion, the consequences. I'm gonna give you an example too. I had a lady who actually contacted me about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she said she was married. She's in her 70s, by the way. She had an abortion almost 50 years ago because her husband at that point said, "If you do not do this, I'm going to leave you."
Wow. Her
I
husband.
never, her
Her.
husband at that, she's
Wow.
not with him anymore, but that was her husband.
Mm,
She said, "I never forgot it. It has never left my mind."
mm,
So something she's been dealing with over 50 years. I'm not sure whether she's ever gotten healed from it because it's still fresh with her.
yeah.
One of the things that comes out when people who have had abortions that they don't even connect is they may be it may be regret. Sometimes it's simply seeing, every year you see a child about the same age your child would have been. It brings back those memories. It may be anger. It might be just loss of self-confidence. It might be relationship issues. Could be some depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. There are so many triggers that may be related back to a past abortion. And people don't connect those two because they think it's just a physical thing. I can go get this medical procedure done. It's over with. It's done. I'm through. But emotionally, it still may be there and they're not dealing with it. So what we offer is we have a program called Restoring Hope, basically, and it not only deals with abortions. I will tell you, we have a program that deals with any kind of past hurt, anger, those kind of things. We have 4 different programs under this umbrella. But it's a very small group. We put you in a group where you go through a basically a recovery type restoration type ministry. It's a Bible study. I will say it's a Bible study because we know that the best way to get forgiven is through God. So when you learn to forgive yourself, God forgives you, but you've got to forgive yourself and get healed from it. So we walk you through this program. There's a phone number. I can give you that phone number if they want to call that, because again, you don't want to tell everybody, but we put you in a small group. We are so particular about this that if you come from a church and another member of your church come from the same church and for the same program, we won't put you in the same group
That's awesome.
because we want you to feel comfortable sharing your history and dealing with it. But if anybody in that situation, I would say call 330-834-8224. And I know you're going to have the lady who oversees that program on your program next week, so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to know more about it. But if there's anybody today who says, you know what, I need this help, I need to talk to somebody now,
Yeah.
that number they can call and start that process.
And that number again was 330-834-8224.
Yes.
Awesome. That number is on the screen there, ladies and gentlemen. 330-834-8224. If you need more support, you guys check that out. Call that number here in Stark County. But anywhere, if you call that number, I'm sure we can help get you to some resources. Now, let's talk about resources around the country, just as you know it, as far as there being other options. If people are looking for support, and again, some are Planned Parenthood is more known. It's there, right? And there was a comment earlier that I did want to call out about Planned Parenthood. Gloria Sanders said, abortion is definitely in the history of Planned Parenthood. However, it is not the abortion mill some people now think it is. Education, planning, and treatment are current and primary focus. So they do some good in their communities. It's not all come in and you walk in and you need some help and they're like, you have a sexually transmitted STD, STI, whatever they're called now, or whatever may be going on, or you're pregnant or you're thinking about it. It's not come on in, let's abort the baby. But there are people who have some serious concerns, and maybe knowing some of the history of it. Are there other options like this in other communities, like what you have?
Yes, there are pregnancy. We're generally known as pregnancy support centers or pregnancy centers. So they are all over the nation and internationally. So if you look look under, just look for that title, either Google or whatever, a pregnancy center. Most communities have one that's nearby in their area.
Okay.
And then a lot of them have the medical component where they can get the ultrasound, the pregnancy test, and some of the other things to go with that. So we are nationwide.
Okay.
Here in Stark County and Summit County, we have a couple of different ones. We have Pregnancy Choices here in Stark County. In Akron, we have Akron Pregnancy Services. And we also have an Eva Women's Clinic in both. So we're covered pretty good here in Stark County and Summit County, but we are nationwide, basically, just under different names.
Awesome. Awesome. That's important for people to know, because I think people so often think there aren't a lot of options or they don't know where else to turn. So let's talk a little bit about adoption support. You guys also do adoption support. If someone they want to carry the baby, they want to have their baby, they don't want to have an abortion. Is there support for people out there looking to say, I need some help with adoption?
We refer out for that. We do
Okay.
have a couple of outside agencies, and most of the pregnancy centers do that. We have a couple of other places that we refer out to for that as an option. And then the second part of that is when you decide to place your baby for adoption, it can be a loss for you. So in that back end that I was talking about earlier with the Restoring Hope, we actually have a program that deals with after adoption support. So to help you get through that, so that you're not, you look at it differently. And adoptions have changed so much over the years with open adoption, and you can know who the parents are, and not just giving up that child and saying, well, I don't know what's going on. There are so many different options out there that people can choose from. Um, One of the things I forgot to say earlier is going back to the abortion issue with the African Americans. Many people will ask, what is the leading cause of African American deaths? And usually you hear things like, well, it's probably heart disease or AIDS or, diabetes or whatever. The reality is that since 1973, when legal abortion started, we've lost more babies to abortions than all of those things combined.
Wow. Ladies
We've
and
lost we've
gentlemen,
lost generations.
wow. To pause and think about that, I am not here to suggest that there weren't systems in place that led us here. We didn't get here on our own. However, we got to get somewhere better than this. I would like to think, because Black lives do matter. We do have to. We need our voting power, our power economically to change things, to the next presidents and leaders, men and women of color. If we are losing more to abortion than anything else, it is something we need to take into. Now, I will not accept someone using that as a racial issue or microaggression to suggest that, well, see, we told you, you proved it. You guys are killing yourselves more than we're killing you. A couple cops kill you, and you guys have a fit, but you're killing yourself. That's not okay, because, again, even as we look at the history of Planned Parenthood and other things, that Margaret Sanger wasn't the only person who was thinking, how do we kill? Dr. King was killed because it was like, we can't have people teaching them how to live. That we'd rather them be killing each other or killing their babies or killing themselves or whatever. That is much better for an agenda that wants to be, that it sees white as supreme. And that's just the truth. I'm not saying that as a black man to try to cause an issue or create an issue. That is the reality of our country. If you study it, it was based on the supremacy of whites, and they needed an economic engine, and they used black people for that. And after slavery was ended, it wasn't all good. It was cool to have babies when you're slaves, because then you make more slaves. But if you make babies and you're not slaves and you're not happy with us, you might create an army that will come against us, just like the Revolutionary Army, just like the army in the American Revolution went against the country that they were a part of. So we have to understand that those are realities that we have to take in. Again, Pastor Gary Martin said here in the comments, he said, God is the giver of life. He said, I was adopted. I didn't know that. He said, I was adopted. Life matters from the cradle to the grave. Amen, Pastor Martin. Thank you so much for that comment. So another thing I want us to talk about is the House of Hope. We're going to have Stephanie, one of your staff members, on next Monday. Can you tell us a little bit about the House of Hope?
The House of Hope is the place where all of the restoration ministry happens. We do, like I say, we have about 4 classes that we offer periodically through the year. And one is grief support, which if you any kind of grief you've had, you can go through that class. We have the after abortion healing. We have childhood sexual abuse, because that is something that's very common. So we have a class that deals with that. And then healing from any kind of sexual past. And that may mean that, you were, maybe you were raped, or maybe you just decided you wanted to be sexually active as a teenager. Now you're dealing with that. So we have those groups, and then we have the after abortion support. So all of those things happen at a safe location. House of Hope, we don't advertise the address. We don't do any of those things because we don't want people just showing up. We have to be basically invited there once you contact them and go through the whole intake process.
Awesome. I do have a question here from Pastor Hubert Carpenter. He asked, are there health issues that come along with abortions? Can you help us understand what may be some of the implications on the woman or her body?
It depends on what kind of abortions he had, because I'm not going to get into the details of all of those, but there can be health issues. There have been people who have known that they can't have another child. That's not the common thread, but it does happen. Okay. And like I said, it's a lot of emotional type things that happen because of that, and unfortunately now, because of being able to order anything online, can order the after abortion pill online, where you're not getting any medical treatment at all. You're just doing it online, and you're taking these pills and you're doing that. You don't know what the consequences are. But again, the great thing is, even if somebody who started that whole process of taking the pills, if you catch it in time, there's something they can give you to stop the process. And there are many babies still being born even after they started that process.
Interesting. Fascinating. That is important for people to know. I think so often, again, we aren't educated on all the options, right? People don't know what all the options are. What can they do? So again, before we end, can you share with us one more time your organization or organizations, and again, what are some of the services that you guys provide, and what area do you guys provide those to?
We're predominantly here in Stark County and Summit County. For the EVA's Women Clinic part, we offer ultrasounds, pregnancy tests, STD testing, and treatment. We do some well women visits. We have medical professionals who do all of those things, all free of charge, by the way. If you know how much ultrasound may cost, it's free. All we got to do is schedule. Between here and Summit County, between Summit County and Stark County, we are basically open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and some days up until 8 o'clock at night. And then if you are a parent, you are pregnant, and you need to know about childbirth, parenting, want to get connected into some of our classes in order to learn how to take care of that child, how to earn some items, and like all the items you might need to take care of that baby, then you can come through Pregnancy Choices and be able to go through what we call our Earn and Learn program, where basically you're going to get connected with other parents, and you will be able to basically take care of your child with many of the items that we have.
Awesome. We thank you so much for these resources. I pray that people who are watching right now, that you all would share this information with someone you know, with your young people. Their organization also goes into the schools and works with the children in the schools. your churches. Go to your church and say, what can we do now? Right? What can we do? I know it's quarantine. Don't wait, though. Don't wait until quarantine's over and then we can get together in a group. Well, there's churches have enough space to do some social distancing. Churches are all mostly coming back together anyway. If you want to help your youth, and we all are doing the same stuff. People are about to get ready to go back to school and do back to school supply giveaways and the same stuff all churches do and have been doing. It's time for us to do something different. We have a generation of children who are being bombarded with sex, sexuality, pornography, even in the dances and all the other stuff, as was shared earlier. They're being bombarded, but they're not being bombarded with education, right? With the truth about what goes on. They haven't heard the true stories of maybe someone who's had an abortion and the guilt or the pain that they may have carried afterwards. They don't know those stories. All they know is somebody, it's an option, and that's all they know. They don't know that there may be more baggage that they can't just walk away from. Okay, when they leave that doctor's office, or sadly, as was shared, some who are just doing it at home on their own. So we are so excited here on Lucas Live to bring this great education, motivation, and liberation to you guys. Miss Deborah, you have been a wonderful, wonderful guest. Thank you so much for educating our audience. We touched on some tough stuff today. This is not easy. When you to tell us that as Black people, we've lost more people from abortion than heart disease and strokes and car accidents and and violence and all these other things that we think are the leading causes. We need to think about that. We need to take that in, and we need to look for some help, and we need to look for some change. So thank you for everything you brought to us today, and thank you for everything you're doing in the community.
You're welcome, and thank you for doing Lucas Live.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys again for being here for another wonderful episode. You guys got all day. When we're here in the morning, you got all day to rewatch it, listen to it while you're at work again, share it with somebody, tap your coworker, send it to your family and friends, and say, hey, we need to have this conversation. You have young people, teenagers, others in your home who you need to start having some of these conversations with. You got to educate, motivate, and liberate your people in your house. And liberation doesn't mean you set them off to go do whatever they want. It means you let them feel free to be a leader when it comes to this, that they don't have to succumb to the temptations and pressures of sex. And Miss Deborah Martin and her organization, they help people with that. We want to teach our young people, not just say no. How do you say no? I always tell young people, I say practicing abstinence is hard if you put yourself in a bad situation. You got to start by practicing absence. You got to not be some places. Don't go be alone at the place with the guy or the girl and it's dark and y'all trying to Netflix and chill but not do all the stuff that comes with that. You're putting yourself behind. You're putting yourself in a bad situation, okay? So practice some absence a little more. Help these young people out. Thank you guys for all the love in the comments. I see you guys. I'm so excited. Tomorrow we have another great guest. Thank you guys. Yes, thank you. Going to rewatch. Thank you, Pastor Martin. So excited. Thank you for being here in the comments. Thank you for everything. And tomorrow we have another great show. Our guest tomorrow was a victim of rape at the hands of her stepfather. She's going to tell her story tomorrow. She's going to talk about forgiving him, forgiving her mother. She's going to talk about the fact that her mother took this man back. What was that like? And she's going to talk about her book as well. And we're going to talk about, do broken crayons still color? Can a broken crayon still color? A woman who was a victim of rape, who the man who raped her went to prison, came home, her mother stayed with the man. What happened after that? We're going to hear her story. We're going to talk about these topics here on Lucas Live, a variety of things. This week, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry, but most importantly, we're going to be educated, motivated, and liberated. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Don't forget, we have more to do. You got all day to do more. So do more today to help, give, love, and serve somebody out there. You guys have been great as always. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Everybody